I've been really studying Jordan Love because I think Jordan Love is physically and just traits-wise a top 3-4 quarterback in this league.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It never is, but especially not on a Thursday when we've got this civilian GOAT in the house, the NFL Films legend, Greg Cosell, breaking down the tape. Can't wait to ask him about Spencer Rattler, who plays again tonight, and Drake May, each of whom made their first starts. We've got receivers on the move. We've got potential quarterback change in Pittsburgh. I've been waiting all week. You remember that? They used to say, waiting all week for, is it Monday night, Sunday night? I wait all week for Greg Cosell. Very much looking forward to it. Love, by the way, announcing winners on Friday, on a Finish Strong Friday, Winners Friday, because you're the ones that go the extra mile, and you're the ones that deserve one of these awesome signed press passes from some of these games I call. How about Steelers-Jets Sunday night on the radio? That'd be a great one for you guys to get. You can check me out on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. Check us out at Ross Tucker Pod. Obviously, I'll make my prediction for tonight's game as well. But first, it's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Greg Cosell, of course, presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly. Let's drink it all in, Greg, with your thoughts on a bunch of different things. I usually start with the Thursday night game. I'm starting with the Sunday night game because there's a lot to this right now, including the fact that I'll be calling the game for Westwood One. So
that makes it the most important game of the weekend.
I think it's the most interesting one now. Yeah, I think it's the most interesting one. But yes, you're right. Whatever game I'm calling is the most important. I guess we'll start with this. He played a couple games this year for the Raiders. What have we seen from Devontae Adams? He had a big game against the Ravens in that come-from-behind win for the Raiders. Hasn't played in 3 weeks or whatever it is, 4 weeks. He obviously has been a tremendous player. We know that, Greg. What do you think the Jets are getting in him? What do you think he still has left?
Oh, no, I think he's still a very good receiver. I'm not concerned about Devontae Adams at all. I mean, obviously, the Jets felt they need another wideout. But I have to tell you, in watching the tape of Rodgers in the Monday night game, and I know they lost the game, I thought Rodgers threw the ball exceptionally well. It may have been his best throwing game of the season. It still comes out beautifully. He still makes ridiculous throws. He made a seam throw to Lazard in the fourth quarter. That may have been the best throw I've seen this year. So they're looking for more weapons, and they have one now, and they have one that Rodgers is familiar with. So they're clearly making a move based on the fact that they think that division is still up for grabs, even though they just lost a tough division game. And I think I would expect their passing game to continue to improve. The big key, of course, will be their O-line, and can that play well? If it can, Moses was back this week. At this point, he's a clear upgrade over the Penn State rookie Fashanu. So I think that they're making a move because Rodgers is throwing the ball extremely well.
A little bit disappointed, Greg, by them up front, both sides of the ball. I mean,
would
the
agree.
Bills ran the ball down their throat at times. And then on the O-line, I mean, the flea flicker, Rodgers gets rocked.
Yep.
Tyron Smith gets picked clean, beat clean by Epinesa. Rodgers gets smoked in the back. You mentioned Morgan Moses. He has the pre-snap jump when they're trying to get a free play. You know, just not as detailed and clean up front as those guys need to be.
And I did not think this was one of Tyron Smith's best games in pass pro. Let's put aside the penalty call on the touchdown. A lot of people didn't think that was a penalty. I don't get into that, but I'm just talking about the way he played in pass protection. It was not one of his best games.
On the other side, we record this Thursday mornings pretty early. All we know is there's multiple reports out there that Russell Wilson is getting first-team reps with the Steelers. I am dying for someone to get clarity. Is he getting all of the first-team reps, or is he getting some of the first-team reps? There's a big difference between those two. I guess the first question is, Greg, Justin Fields. The Steelers are 4-2. What have you seen from Fields so far this season for this to even be evidently at a minimum a consideration for the Steelers?
I think that Fields has settled into what he is. He has really good moments, and I've actually documented those. I did a piece a few weeks ago on the matchup show where he showed some really strong anticipation, some excellent coverage recognition. He certainly has those moments, and he looks very good. And then he has other moments where he just does not look comfortable in the pocket, and you have a sense that he's not seeing it the way he should, and he becomes essentially a runner. But I will say this, and here's the thing that Fields brings to the Steelers. They want to be a physical running football team. That's the way they want to play. It's probably the way they have to play regardless who's at quarterback. But Fields gives you that dimension in the run game that Wilson does not. If Wilson plays, and I believe he will play this year, whether it's this Sunday or not, we don't know. What they're hoping, here's sort of the bet they're making, that Wilson gives you more in the pass game and that they sacrifice a little in the run game, but the pass game then becomes more important because maybe it can create some explosive plays, and maybe someone like George Pickens, who you could easily say talent-wise is a top 5 or 6 receiver in the league, becomes a bigger factor in their offense. So they're making a bet. It's two different offenses.
Well, what's so interesting about that is it feels like Arthur Smith prefers the run-based offense, where that's the bigger component of it with Justin Fields.
Yes.
But evidently not.
And or it may not be his choice.
That's a fair point, too. That's a very, very fair point. Listen, I'll be there. We'll see what happens. I would say it does not make a lot of sense to me to make this move unless in-game Justin Fields is playing poorly. I would also say that this would feel out of character for Mike Tomlin to do this. He usually kind of rides the hot hand at that position, and if they're winning, he usually stays with it, a.k.a. Mason Rudolph last year, and other times he's done that, but maybe not. We will find out. Should be interesting. We got a couple of rookies tonight, Greg. It's the Broncos and the Saints. I'm starting to feel bad for the Saints, right? I mean, Olave out with a concussion. Taysom Hill won't play. Rashid Shaheed's out maybe for the year with meniscus surgery. But as you've taught me, Greg, we try to evaluate the quarterback by what the quarterback's doing. So I want to start with Rattler and what you saw in his first start against the Bucs.
Yeah, for the most part, I kind of liked what I saw. They did a really good job early in the game, and somewhat throughout the game. They did a lot of play-action boot, both with Rattler in the gun and under center. It was clearly a foundation of how they wanted to play. They've tended to feature it off hard outside run zone action, so it gave it a misdirection element. They wanted the defense's eyes to look one way, and then Rattler would boot the other way. But what immediately stood out to me, that's a tactical thing, but just talking about Rattler, he's an aggressive thrower. He is willing to turn it loose, and particularly versus man coverage. And you have to have that mindset and mentality as an NFL quarterback. One thing I've learned, Ross, from a lot of coaches is you can't really make a guy aggressive. You can dial a guy back, but if a guy doesn't see aggressive throws and is just innately willing to turn it loose, that's very hard to teach. And Rattler clearly is one of those guys that is an aggressive thrower. Now, I also saw some things I expected. There were a couple of times his read was muddy to the side that it was the read side, and he would just break down in the pocket without even looking anywhere else. Those are normal things you see from young quarterbacks because everything happens fast. It happens faster than it did in college. And if you don't get a clean read, you're not sitting back there going, hey, I got time, let me look around. You're feeling like, oh, no, they're going to get on me. So those are normal things to expect. But I would say overall, I thought his first game, it's one game, I would say it was far more positive than negatives.
Got it. Love it. On the other side, I don't know when the last time you checked out Bo Nix. Anything new on Bo Nix?
Yeah,
I'll tell you this
I
much
didn't
about
get to
Bo
see
Nix,
him this
Greg.
week. I mean, I think that Bo Nix he's very much to me a function of Sean Payton's system. He needs it presented to him cleanly and efficiently. He needs all the specifics and the details to be taken care of. and I don't mean this in a negative way because every quarterback is to a certain extent, but he's truly a function of the system working for him. Now, he does have mobility and he can make plays outside of structure, but he needs it to be presented so that the ball can be delivered when he hits his back foot and the ball can come out.
The one thing that jumped out to me watching him, and maybe I remembered this from Auburn, but I didn't see it as much at Oregon, he's definitely more mobile than I realized.
Yeah,
he can really
very
run.
mobile. And that's the strength of his game.
Yeah, no question. And I know on the Fantasy Feast podcast, which, by the way, we're putting that on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast feed this week, so you guys can check out John Daigle, who's fantastic. He mentioned that Bo Nix has been good for fantasy because of how much he's running. What about Drake May, Greg? We got the Sunday morning game.
Yeah.
Patriots, Jags. Really wanted to get your initial thoughts on Drake May.
Yeah, Drake May, he's really physically gifted. You can see the size. You can see how easily he throws the ball. These are all things we saw at North Carolina, Ross. I think that there are two things in watching that tape that we have to monitor going forward. And obviously he's going to play. His ball placement needs to become more consistently precise. He missed too many routine throws with poor ball placement. And that's going to have to be cleaned up because you can't miss those throws in the NFL. And again, the second point I'm going to make is something that I totally expect. I made the point about Rattler. We need to see May develop a little more patience in the pocket. But, when you're talking about a first NFL start, it's really hard to make definitive evaluations of players. I would say, if I'm being honest, I would say that Rattler's performance was a little more efficient than May's performance, but May also made some really impressive throws. The touchdown he threw to Booty was a great vertical throw. I mean, May that was a big-time NFL throw. So the ability is there. He's got excellent vision on the move. He can make off-schedule plays. So May has all the traits, but he's going to have to become more consistently precise with his ball location.
I said this somewhere else. I never watched an NFL game like that before where I've never heard of the center or left tackle that are on the field. I mean, the center was a guy named Ben Brown that they just cut off somebody's practice squad.
Yeah.
The left tackle, Zach Thomas, it's pretty wild to be
Even
watching
the right
a regular
tackle
season NFL game.
Was it Jacobs? Derek, did you know him?
Nope, I didn't know him either.
Yeah.
It was wild. Let's get to the Bills and the Titans, Greg, because the Bills made a big move, bringing in Amari Cooper. Obviously, when I think about the Bills, I think about Buffalo, Labatt Blue Light, and how I will be drinking that Saturday night when I get back from UConn before I drive on Sunday to Pittsburgh. Drinking Labatt Blue Lights with my friends and family when I get home Saturday night. Always enjoy responsibly beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. Greg, Amari Cooper, okay? Why'd the Bills get him? And why has any idea why he struggled in Cleveland this year? I mean, I've seen him drop a bunch of balls.
Yeah, the drops I can't really speak to. I mean, obviously you can't do that. But Cleveland's pass offense with Deshaun Watson could be the worst in the league. Watson should not be a starting quarterback in the NFL right now. So it's hard to really decide what you think of Cooper based on that. He's obviously been a solid NFL receiver in his career, at times special. So the Bills clearly felt they needed someone in their mind that could win versus man coverage, because in their mind, the only guy who can do that is really Khalil Shakir, because Coleman is a rookie, and they're not really using him as a volume target yet. Maybe that continues to develop. But, I watch the Bills, and, I feel like I don't see a lot of really good schematics in their passing game. I feel like everything is either quick or they try to throw it down the field vertically. Now, I think Josh Allen is one of the most fascinating quarterbacks to watch. We know that he's a great player in what he can do. But he's always going to be a guy, and well, I shouldn't say always, but up to this point in his career, because this is what the tape shows, Ross, there's too many dropbacks in which he leaves the pocket prematurely. He doesn't allow routes to develop. He leaves throws on the field because of that. That would be there within the timing and structure of the play design. But then he can do something special. So, those guys, I would imagine, you're not you're letting Josh be Josh in a certain sense, and you live with the plays that aren't made because of the plays he can make, like the 42-yard pass to Davis, where he just ran, and I think he was running at like 16, miles per hour, which is just ridiculous to make that throw. But I think Allen is also part of the reason their pass game does not have sort of a timing and rhythmic feel to it.
Interesting. I'll say this. Keon Coleman doesn't get any separation at all.
Yeah.
And
that was a concern coming out.
And I got news for you. It's hard to be a contested catch only guy in the NFL. The corners are much better at the catch point. Looking at your eyes and hands and ripping through than the guys in college. It's much, much harder to make those catches, I feel like.
And to me, you can't make a living in the league as a contested catch receiver. There has to be more than that. That's a great trait to have, no question, but that can't be what you are if you're going to be a number one receiver.
Greg, let's get to Texans-Packers, some of the big games this weekend.
Yeah.
Thoughts on Texans-Packers?
Well, I've been really studying Jordan Love because I think Jordan Love is physically and just traits-wise a top 3-4 quarterback in this league. He still has some things to clean up. He still has a tendency to throw a few too many balls off balance, falling backwards, and that has to be cleaned up. There's no question, because that will lead to some bad throws. But what they do offensively, and this comes from Matt LaFleur, it's funny you asked me this right after we spoke about the Bills. They do so many good things schematically that it really creates throws for Love, and he's such a good thrower of the football. So it's a really beautiful mix of schematics and a quarterback that's really a high-level talent. Now, keep one thing in mind, too. He's only been sacked 4 times in 155 dropbacks. That's 0.25% of his dropbacks. That's really, really good. So he's not giving negative plays. Now, every once in a while, he can be a little reckless. He can be a little undisciplined. But then there were also dropbacks in which he plays with high-level understanding and efficiency, getting the ball out. So he just needs to keep working toward that more consistently. But you're dealing with a really talented quarterback.
Interesting. All right. What about Lions and Vikings? Vikings coming off the bye, and I'm so upset about Aiden Hutchinson and the Lions.
Well, to me, the other side of the ball is one of the most fascinating matchups of the week because when you look at the Vikings D under Brian Flores, you see pressure fronts, you see disguise, you see late rotation, you see 7-8 man up front to start, and then they could rush 3. So it's really it's a pre-snap game and a post-snap game. It makes it really difficult for the quarterback. But keep in mind, they played Week 16 and Week 18 last year, and the Lions put up 30 each time. Goff has a really good feel for playing that game. That's what he is. He's a pocket quarterback with an excellent feel for both what he sees pre-snap and then validating or changing post-snap. And to me, that side of the ball is really the fascinating matchup in this game.
Looking forward to that one for sure. How about Chiefs-Niners Super Bowl rematch, Greg?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, every year is different in this league. You know that, Ross. I mean, all you can do is watch the tape and see what you see on tape. And a couple of things. Number one, the Niners are not, sort of Kyle Shanahan's Niners from 4 or 5 years ago. Purdy's in the gun over 80% of his dropbacks. This is not the old school Niners with Kyle where you thought play action under center. They're not really like that. Yet, and play action, as a matter of fact, they're not even close to among the highest percentage play action pass games in the league. This is much more Purdy in the gun, drop back pass game. And on the other side, Mahomes has not really been that. I mean, he's been efficient, but there's too much movement. And he's so great at it that he makes plays. But there's not really a timing and rhythm to their pass game right now either. They still haven't gotten Worthy truly involved in their pass game. So we'll see. This is going to be interesting. Obviously, they're undefeated, so that's a good thing. But their defense is really, really good. And keep in mind, they've become a running team to some extent. I mean, Kareem Hunt came in and had, 27 carries in the last game? And before that with Pacheco. So they've sort of evolved a little bit. It's not all Mahomes.
Ravens, Bucks, Juicy one on Monday night. I'm looking forward to that one, Greg.
Yeah, we talked about Lamar last week when he beat the Bengals, and he was equally as good this week against Washington. Now, Washington does not have a great secondary, but Lamar's playing at a really, really high level mentally and physically. He's been so much fun to watch. He's seeing things clearly. He knows where to go with the football, both against man and zone. You always have the running explosive element with him, which showed up a couple of times this past week. I think he had a 33-yard run this past week. So he's really playing high-level football right now. Against a Bucs defense that is an interesting mix, Ross, because they're high percentage blitz and low percentage man coverage. So everything is zone, but they're really good with their overload pressures.
Check him out on social media. He is the man. We love him every Thursday here on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is appointment listening or viewing, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
I love football. I love tailgating. I love that you guys get to tailgate a lot more than I do with Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka and an official vodka partner of the NFL. It's an experience that is best enjoyed together. How about this? Smirnoff is giving fans in select areas of the country a chance to win the ultimate game day experience. Tickets, sideline passes, much more. Head to WeDoGameDays.com until November 15th. WeDoGameDays.com. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age. No purchase necessary. 21 plus. Ends 11/15/24. See rules at website for participating area and other important details. Sponsored by Diageo Americas Incorporated, New York, New York.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, you kind of talked about it with Greg, but do you think the Steelers are really going to be starting Russell Wilson at quarterback this week?
I'll believe it when I see it. And maybe they will. I wrote this on social media at Ross Tucker NFL when these reports came out. Number one, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to bench Justin Fields after they just won by 20 points. Secondly, even if you were thinking about starting Russell Wilson, would you want that news to get out Tuesday and people to know about it Wednesday? Seems like you would keep that really close to the vest so the Jets would be surprised as best as you possibly could on Sunday night. So the fact that it's out there makes me think that perhaps the Steelers are just giving the Jets something to consider and think about. Like I said, I might be wrong, and it'll be interesting either way, but I'll believe it when I see it that Russell Wilson starts that game Sunday night.
According to reports, there is a game tonight. The Denver Broncos are at the New Orleans Saints. With these rookie quarterbacks, which team are you liking in this one?
Well, you know I make that Thursday night pick every week presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I'm going with the Broncos. I loved a lot of the things that Spencer Rattler did last week for the Saints. They're just too beat up. No Rashid Shaheed, no Chris Olave. I think their #1 receiver is a rookie from Yale who, if he was smart, would have gone to Princeton. So he can't be that. Now, that's a joke. That's a joke. Ivy League humor. Anyway, this would be a super impressive win for the Saints, for them to pull this off with all the injuries they have. Although the Broncos don't have Patrick Surtain either. I'll still take Denver. Doesn't think there's going to be very many points in this one. 20-17, Broncos.
Got some injury notes here. Ricky Pearsall, he is back practicing for San Francisco. Meanwhile, Giants left tackle Andrew Thomas, he is done for the year after having foot surgery yesterday. And the Saints, their wide receiver Rashid Shaheed might be done after he undergoes meniscus surgery today.
Such a bummer. I mean, it feels like this Saints season was so promising like 2 weeks ago. After the first 2 weeks, they smashed the Panthers, smashed the Cowboys. We were all talking about, oh my gosh, the Saints with this new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. Then they had a weird game against the Eagles, and they weren't able to win. But the week after that, I thought they dominated the Falcons and just kind of blew that one late. Then the Chiefs got them, as they started to get some injuries. And then obviously Derek Carr gets hurt at the end of that Chiefs game. So now they have to start Spencer Rattler. Couldn't stop the Bucs at all. Now Olave's out for tonight with a concussion. Shaheed might be done for the year. It's just the ugly situation now for the Saints. And that's not good for the Giants either with Andrew Thomas. I mean, he's their best offensive lineman. Now maybe it's Zudu. Maybe they move Illuminor from right tackle to left tackle. That is a big, big loss for the Giants to not have Andrew Thomas for the year. And obviously, fantastic news for Ricky Pearsall with the Niners. I just keep thinking about him surviving a gunshot to the chest. And I just cannot believe anything about that. It's just incredibly, incredibly scary. And I'm so thankful that he's okay.
And the only other news that we've got is Lions defensive tackle Liam McNeil. He's getting a huge contract extension to stay in Detroit.
Good for him, man. I love guys that are, primarily interior linemen, run stuffers. I mean, he gives them a good push up the middle on pass rush. Gives them some good pass rush at times. But he got a huge contract. The Lions have done a really nice job of taking care of the guys that deserve to be taken care of and have earned it. What's interesting is they were probably going to give all that money, or a lot of it at least, to Aiden Hutchinson. Next thing you know, he gets hurt. So then they gave the money to McNeil. Good for him. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. Love me some myfrontpagestory.com. How about backofficescheduler.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, and Delicious Pizza Boy Brewing.